Hey Daniela, I saw your reference that I saw in class, and now I see it here in mine. It looks like you got some stuff blocked out. Awesome, great start, loving it. Um, cool. I kind of like this setup too. It's really nice to be able to see the reference in Maya with with the actor. Um, I think that's going to be helpful for both of us, so I really appreciate that. Um, so I see you have a few poses in here. So the stuff I'm noticing is I want to mention the stuff I'm noticing. So what I noticed about the reference, and I would advise you to copy what your reference is doing in this instance. Ooh, that's a big fat pen. I don't want that. But this screen left foot is the one that's planted and she's stepping forward, right? But that foot never like moves or leaves the ground. But in your poses, you're sliding this foot back. So if you want to do that, if that's important to this piece, we can do that, but it's going to make the mechanics like kind of different from what's happening in your reference. It's probably going to take um, a little bit more time to do that, and I don't really feel like that's what's important about the reference that you chose. So I would advise you to keep that foot planted. You can see in the actress, when she does it, you can see there's like tiny foot rolls and kind of like the foot isn't really moving. Maybe it's twisting a little bit on the ball and it's like angling a little bit over that screen left foot. Um, so it doesn't have to be like totally locked off and solid. In fact, it's probably better if there is some tiny slightly adjustments on it. But in this view, I can see that the foot is actually moving backwards there. So I would caution you against that. Um, so she gets into the fighting stance by planting that foot forward, and this is your fighting stance, and it's all cool. But maybe we can push this to be a little cooler or a little bit more dynamic. And one of the things I would suggest is maybe to bring down the center of gravity a little bit so we get a little bit more bend, like visible bend out of the legs. It looks like a little more crouched, a little more coiled and ready for action. I think it's always good when you're posing out a character too. Think about like where the majority of the character's weight would be. Like in a pose like this, is more of the weight on this leg, is more of the weight on this leg. I would feel like the straighter leg always probably has a little bit more of the weight on it, and the bent leg is kind of doing more of the support. And if this leg here has more of the weight on it, you could probably like emphasize that by tipping the pelvis a little bit up. Maybe it's up to you. But another thing I think we're kind of not capturing, or maybe we can push a little bit further, is I would push. See here how she's kind of like back with her butt is almost like directly over this foot, where like yours is like almost over the toe. So I would push this back. This, when I say this, I mean the center of gravity back, and that will allow you to get her more into like, also her torso is kind of like bent. Maybe there's even like a little S curve in it this way as she's prepped to whoop that butt. So try to maybe build that stuff in. Maybe this kind of like backwards S shape can't be quite achieved. Maybe you could also do it where the character is, maybe the character is just curled up in this S shape too. That's fine. This is a little bit more like defensive of a posture. But I think getting like some kind of contrast out of that spine is going to help you, because here it's starting kind of straight. And maybe this is even starting a little too straight. Maybe you can, maybe get a little bit of something like this out of the spine, or get a little design, a little idea for design in there, just to have like a more relaxed starting pose. Yeah. So then going into this pose, yeah, try to push the spine a little bit more one way or the other, and it'll give us good contrast to the relaxed pose, and then pay attention where your center of gravity is over the feet in the side view. This is nicely observed about the center of gravity, like going over this way, because the weight has to shift onto this foot. And so she takes a step right here before she starts lifting up that screen left foot, and I know that you're missing kind of like a frame breakdown there, but yeah, I like that you're starting to shift this weight over in that direction, but I feel like it doesn't shift quite enough. I would maybe push this over just a little bit more and break from what the reference is doing just a little bit. Why? I can't explain it. I feel like, well, I don't know. Okay, so another thing, there's something I should have mentioned in the beginning. I like your setup here. It makes it really clear and easy to read, but I want you to create a shot camera, right? A camera that you want to show this from, like when you present it or when it would go in your movie or whatever, like what's the actual angle that we're going to be seeing this from. Create a camera and frame it like you want, and then lock it so that it doesn't move on you accidentally. And then we're gonna be evaluating, like, this is helpful to figure out what's going on mechanically with the character, but we really need to be able to evaluate it from like the actual shot, like how does this fit into the movie and what's the angle, to make sure that all the silhouettes are clear and that the poses are reading clearly. So when I say like move it over a little bit, maybe this won't even matter because in the actual shot cam. So I think the reason I'm saying move this over a little bit is wrong. I think what I'm missing is the actress has kind of like this, it's leaned over now, the top of her torso. I think when I was looking at this, it felt a little off balance, and my initial thoughts on how to solve that was to push over the center of gravity to the right, but I think it would be stronger to actually like lean the torso over to the right. So if you're working with an FK torso, you should be able just to rotate this bottom, not the pelvis, but the bottommost torso control. You could do it by rotating the center of gravity. You can maybe build it in with this as well, but you kind of want to get like this curve, like a nice, my yellow scribbles are kind of straight, but what you kind of want is like a nice kind of swoopy, like a little bit of an indication of a curve there, you know, in that pose. And then I see like there's a lot of collapsing and stuff going down here. We can figure that out later. As long as your hips are tipped here, because like the actress is bringing her leg up and her knee up, it's going to pull the pelvis up. This is like when it defies the rule that the pelvis tips up highest on where the weight is. When you're actively trying to like raise a leg, that's when it breaks that. So I think that your pelvis is still kind of flat when I look at it in this viewpoint, and maybe it's just like you haven't gotten like thoroughly resolved on some of these poses yet, because this is nearing the end, I think, of where you were able to, yeah, there's one more pose after that. Another important detail to observe is how the top of her, not only is she rotating it this way, but the top of her torso is kind of coming back in space, you know, so I want to see that lean back a little bit, and the character needs to lean back. I'm not sure if there should be a bend in there or not, but the character needs to lean back to offset the weight of this leg, like coming forward, because now the center of gravity is like very different, you know, that she's one-legged. So yeah, I just want to see a little tip back from that, which might mean, you know, you're going to have to like rotate the neck forward, make sure the head is still, it's going to be important through all of this to make sure that the head is still like focused on the target. You know what I mean? I like that you're observing how she brings up the arms and stuff, which is great. I would make sure that you're rotating these clavicles up whenever the arms raise up, probably past like here. So if this is the arm down at the side and we're raising them up, at this point is when the clavicles, anything higher than this is going to mean the clavicles have to also raise up with it, like the shoulders, the shoulder blades and all that stuff. So I would raise that up. Try to not have the hands be so much exactly the same. Like I do like in the reference how we're getting clear silhouettes here, where both hands are and where both arms are. Where like if you notice in yours, they're stacked. So I don't know where that back hand, I mean, it could be like hidden behind the body here. It could be like up, but it's always good to kind of like get a little variety, a little offset there, so that everything reads kind of clearly. You can also pay attention to this. We're seeing now like the back of, if I had to draw her spine, we're starting to see more of the back, which indicates to me that there's like a rotation happening as this hip and leg and foot and pelvis is like all rotating forward, you know, like these shoulders are also rotating forward. So just when you're looking at your reference, try to like pay attention to like how stuff is rotating and leaning and changing, because that stuff is really going to help make it feel believable. Now this is like almost like a recoil after the kick. And so this pose is having a lot of the same, especially with the torso and everything, it's going to have a lot of the same notes that I said before on this pose, right? You can see in the reference that like the torso continues to like rotate. Like now, if I had to draw her spine, I don't know why I would keep on wanting to say spinal cord, but if we're drawing the spine, we can see that now we can see even more of the back. You know what I mean? So try to like notice the changes. Like we're like the hips are like super open as she brings this leg forward, but also make sure to pay attention to like this. This is a really important keyframe because this is like when you get the full extension of that leg. This is the extreme of the action that we're trying to describe here, that we're describing here in our anim. So make sure to get this keyframe in there. I know you probably just ran out of time, but yeah, it's a really cool reference, and I think you have a really great, strong start here. I'm just kind of talking through all this stuff to help illustrate what I see, what I'm looking for when I look at reference, like what are the details in the reference that's important to me and which details are less important to me. So you know, like where is the center of gravity, how is the torso changing from kind of one important pose to the next. That stuff is for me everything that I'm looking for when I use reference. Great piece of reference and great start on your blocking. Look forward to seeing you next week. All right, thanks.